recording. Recording is in progress. So today we have a very special guest, Keith, with Loctech. He invented the Loctech Smart Key Defeat tool, along with AccuReader and quite a few other tools. So without further ado, Keith, please go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you got started and what makes you so crazy about making tools that defeat locks so well.
Okay, well, first off, nice to meet everybody. Thanks for having me, Wayne.
Yes, sir.
I guess, we started in the industry as regular locksmiths back in 2007. At that time, there was not any motorcycle decoders available. And a good friend of mine happened to have a Suzuki dealership. And so we had basically free reign to play with that, as well as, he'd come to us occasionally with needing keys and stuff like that. And there just wasn't any good solutions out there at the time. So being the locksmiths, we decided we'd work on it, and through different groups and online forums at the time, we've kind of basically just made some prototypes and stuff like that, and kind of shared them with some people that we knew, and it kind of went from there. SCZ18, the Suzuki tool, was our very first AccuReader. We were primarily automotive, and so that's what most of our tools always focused on, at least in the beginning.
Yeah.
And so just here recently, of course, with the decoder, I think the decoder is actually our first non-automotive tool that we have. And that was actually a request to see what we could come up with from a friend of mine to solve the issue, because, as everybody knows, and we did some residential also. We just were primarily automotive. So it's not like we didn't, have a grasp really on Quickset Smart Key or anything. But that's basically what we went. We went from basically a request to solve an issue that at the time was basically just drill and replace, to a viable solution for lockouts, etc.
Right.
And in about probably 8 to 10 months worth of development, you finally, and many prototypes, you finally see what we came up with.
So who came to you, since you were mostly in the automotive field? Who came to you and who was like, hey, there's something that can be done here? Or when did you get your aha moment that this could be tackled?
Well, Rob Reynolds had actually first requested to see, I had known him for quite a few years. And he was the first one that really requested us to look into seeing what we could come up with to deal with the smart key locks. And from there, we just kind of really just started experimenting. I mean, we went through many different prototypes, from trying to solve the glare issue of light shining back at the camera off the face of the lock. As I know, anybody that does scoping, that's one of the issues with scoping a lock right off the bat is keeping that reflection from bouncing back into your eyes. We went through trying to use fiber optics to many different things, and just over the course of about 8 to 12 months or so, we finally got all the things hammered out. It was, I'd say, probably within a few months, we knew it was doable. We knew that a solution was possible. It's just basically at that point, from then on, it's just a matter of fine tuning and seeing what works best.
Right. So Rob had kind of brought you up to speed on it, and kind of gave you the rundown on it, and is like, hey, what was it ever really discussed? Hey, this has a lot of similarities to the old GM sidebar locks.
It was a little bit. to a point where, not so much, it was, but the old GM sidebar locks were kind of going out, of popularity. So the idea that was kind of to expand upon this and to making it a scope that's a more general purpose scope also. And we haven't really gone down that road too much. We did some experimenting a little bit with it. But everything being so, to get something that's going to be rock solid per se, it really has to be keyway specific. And that's difficult to do when you've got so many different keyways to deal with.
Right. Right. And this one, it was quick set. And then now they've got the Schlage version. So right then and there, we've already got the two different keyways going run right after another.
Right. Yeah.
So what was your initial reaction when the Schlage version came out? Hey, we got to beat this thing, or we got to adapt it.
No, I mean, it was as soon as I got my hands on one, we pretty much knew it was the same concept, basically the same everything. It was just they did put a little bit of a shield in there, kind of that looked like an attempt to block the view. But just changing the angle of the mirror lets you look in kind of at an angle rather than straight on. So that got past their little shield that they kind of designed into it. The next step, of course, was, as 10 different depths. That's a lot of tiny little steps in there.
Yeah.
So it was from that point, it was mainly a matter of being able to discern the different steps in there.
Okay. And so how much more difficult was it to go from 6 depths that was in the original Schlage, or I'm sorry, in the original Kwikset Smart Key, there was 6 depths. How much more difficult is it to add the extra 3 to go to 9?
Well, it wasn't any more difficult for us. I think it was more difficult for them because their depths, when I don't know if anybody's played with one of the SC1 keyways or not, but if you use the rekeying feature, for example, to rekey an SC1 smart key lock, let's just say your key is cut to all 5s, and you go and use that feature and reset the key, you reset it to a key that's set to all 5s. If you were to take that lock apart at that point, it's very unlikely that the number 5, all those notches are going to be on a 5. It's
Right.
just too much play and too much tiny little notches for it to be perfect. So I guess, for example, if you were to hand assemble it and you knew every one of those notches, you individually put each one of those notches on there, so you knew that it was keyed up to a 5, you could operate that lock with a key cut to 5s or 6s. There's that much play.
Yeah, exactly. And I tested that out. We had talked about that when it first came out as well. And I did just that. I cut a key to all 5s, one to all 1s, and one to all 8s or something like that. And you could tell there was a variance. It wasn't all on 5s. When you take it apart, you could see that. So we know that there's slop built into the lock, and your tool just simply capitalizes and makes sure that we can see exactly what we're looking at on those devices and be able to decode the lock. If we can get eyeballs inside, we can look at tiny little landmarks and we can decode things. So very cool. Well, I'm going to do a video share here, and we're going to come across, let's see here, not that one, let's see here. Loctech Smart Key Decoder. So this is when it first came out. This one was from a few years ago, but I just knew this thing was a hit right off the bat, right when it came out, right when I heard about it.
Wayne's Lock Shop and Locksmith Reference. Don't forget to download the Locksmith Reference app and use it throughout your day. It'll definitely help you out. Has notes, searchability, and all kinds of fun tools to help you. We're going to be taking a look at the Loctech Wi-Fi connected smart key decoding device. Now, this class has forced me to try every single option that there is out there for these smart key locks. I have tried every option imaginable, and this is definitely the Cadillac. So if we're going through it here, I'm showing the different pictures. You can see the little Wi-Fi camera that goes onto the key blank. It looks to be an all brass key blank, and it reflects off of the mirror. Now, they used a very good quality piece of glass and a very high-tech camera in order to put this system together. Some of the other reading systems out there have had issues with the mirror falling off or other problems with the mirror. Loctech has assured me that this will not be an issue with their product, and if you have any problems, they will definitely check it out and make sure that they take care of their product and stand behind it. So if you have any problems, you just send it back to them and they will take care of it. One of the first things that you'll notice is that you need to log on to Wi-Fi. When you are on the Wi-Fi for the camera, this is what it looks like connecting. It says Max-C, AC12. I'm sure there's different ones, but that's the one that I saw. You can download this on your computer like I've done here. You can download it on your phone, which I've done. And you can also just plug the camera. There is a wire, there is a corded connection. So if you don't want to mess around with Wi-Fi, you can plug the actual device directly into the device and directly into a USB port on your computer. That is what we are watching here. I'm recording with my phone, the computer and the device. So basically we've inserted this into the position and we are comparing what that looks like to the card code. So we've got the number 5 cut, and then now we're going to be looking for the number 4 cut. So you can see exactly what it looks like on the computer or on your phone, and you can see what it is supposed to look like. It looks like we're running into a number 4 in this location here. Then you will put on the new spacer, and with that spacer, we're going to insert and look at cut number 3. Cut number 3, you can take a picture, you can record the entire event, you can do anything you need to do with that unit. So it's very, very nice and very handy. If you make a mistake, you can go back out to the truck and you can go back through what you saw and you can make that correction. So here's the number 2 cut here. We're going to compare that to the code on the card. Everything is strung and put together nicely, so you're not going to lose any pieces. Very, very well thought out product. I'm really, really impressed. I really thought it looked kind of like one of those just useless products that's not going to get used very much, and it looks like something like a little kid's beach toy or something with all wires or string holding things together. But I found that each thing has a purpose and a very good purpose on that note. So that is the key, completely decoded. We were able to very easily decode keys, and they were extremely accurate. It took a little bit of a learning curve to get used to it at first, but once you get that learning curve figured out and you begin to identify those marks and orientate them which way they're orientated on the screen and the computer, it is an extremely effective method, and we became very, very proficient with it. So that is pretty much the device. Again, don't forget to download that Locksmith Reference app. Things like this and many other videos are going to be uploaded there through the Wayne's Lock Shop and other pages. So make sure you check out Wayne's Lock Shop as well. And that is what it looks like set up on a computer screen. We'll have many more videos showing what it looks like on the phone screen and other screens coming up.
So what was the inspiration? Where do you start with the tool? Like when you're coming up with this, where do you start?
Well, you really have to, you have to learn the item you're trying to defeat to almost a crazy level, just so you can understand every little tiny thing about it. Because that's what really lets you see what weaknesses it has.
Mhm.
And once you do that, then you kind of basically just come up with a game plan of, okay, what do I need? I can exploit this particular thing. What do I need to make that happen? And it's just really you. I mean, of course, we already had all the decoders, so we had the machinery here to do the milling and everything like that. Um, which was really the easy part. The hard parts for us were doing the new stuff. For example, the mirror. The mirror, you can't just go buy tiny little mirrors like this. You can't buy them. That's going to be on thin enough glass, and it's going to be those exact sizes. So we not only had to learn how to mirror, because we had to mirror extremely thin glass. So we started learning how to mirror glass. And then we had to figure out how to cut the glass that thin and that small. So all of these things, I mean, because we take basically a sheet of glass and we mirror it, and then we cut those little size mirrors out. So these are all basically hurdles. In my mind, they're challenges. That's the fun part. Once it gets into production, I'm ready to hand it to somebody else to make it, and I want to make something new again. So even though you don't see the benefits of everything during that time, the challenge, the research, and figuring out how to do new stuff, that's really what drives you. And it's really just one tackling one thing at a time.
Right. Right. So you're the visionary, you're the creative guy. You want to tinker and then pass it off, and somebody else hammers out the details.
Well, at least the manufacturing part of it, that part's boring. Everybody can push a button and load a tool and unload a tool.
Yeah. Yeah.
That gets boring 8 hours a day.
Yeah, no, I get that 100%. 100%. Well, that's great. We'll go ahead and we'll do another little screen share here, and we'll take a look. Now, tell us a little bit about the thought that you put into this to not only do the QuickSet Smart Key, but on almost all of the new single family or multifamily living establishments that have multiple apartments or multiple complexes. They want something that's master keyable. Like QuickSet's supposed to be one of the #1 hardware sales in the whole country. And if you do that, the only way you can master key it, where you have an additional key that would operate it, is a separate cylinder where you have a deadbolt that has 2 cylinders that actually interact with the same tailpiece. So tell me, what thought process did you have from the beginning to make that work on that lock system as well?
Well, and to be honest, it was a little bit of chance. It happened to be one of the original locks because I had never seen one out in the field. I'll be honest, I haven't run across them. Didn't really even know they existed.
Okay.
And we had one in-house for development, and we had a bunch of different locks, old stuff we could find, new stuff we could find. We wanted to test it on as much as we could test it on. And that just happened to be one of the ones we got a hold of. So once we got a hold of it, most control keys or, master keys or whatever you want to call them in different fields, generally speaking, it's been my experience anyway, that it's because of course, for a control key, they don't want the user key to be made into a control key. So generally, in my experiences, that's meant to make a control key, you have to add something to a user key. In Kwikset's case, they did it the other way around, which is easier to do. I mean, you're taking basically the same key profile, and you're able to, instead of having to add some material to make a control key, you're just simply removing some material from a user key to make the control key. And once we realized that, then we're doing all this machining on this key anyway. We knew most people wouldn't very seldom ever use that feature, and a lot of people probably will never use it. However, we're doing all the machining that we're doing on this key, because we're basically machining this key from all kinds of different angles. It wasn't that big of a deal to go ahead and incorporate it once we figured out we could. And, you know, for that reason alone, we just decided it's like, we might as well do that too. I mean, you know.
Yeah, no, and it works amazingly well. As a matter of fact, I had the tool for probably a year or more, maybe even 2. And I never knew that it worked on that one until we chatted at one of the trade shows. I believe it was the Aloha trade show. And I'm like, hey, you know, we've got this lock over here. And, you know, I was just asking you if there were any little tweaks or anything we could do to it. And then you're like, it works on the top one too. And I'm like, no way. And then sure enough, yep, it slides right in and it decodes the same exact way. And then you can cut it out. You can buy those blanks. I think I bought mine off of Amazon, you know, I mean, it wasn't even from a supplier or anything. So it's not real key control, obviously.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. And then you can cut it. You just cut it just like a normal Kwikset blank. If whatever punch or whatever you have, we'll go ahead and cut it just like anything else. So let's go ahead and I'm going to do another screen share. While we're on the subject of Aloha here, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that the Aloha trade show is coming up. If you're not a member yet, there are so many amazing things that are happening in Aloha right now. The board is really, you know, this is the most advanced, most dynamic board that I've seen put together. I've got a seat at that table as well. And really, we're trying to bring this and make it effective in this market, in this environment, and trying to add more value to the people who are trying to participate and the members who are participating. And so I'm just going to play this little video real quick from Aloha. So if you are planning on coming to the trade show or convention, are you going to be at the trade show and convention, Keith?
I am going to try to be there. Yes, we're not going to do a booth or anything this time, but I do want to try to attend it.
Gotcha. Good. And then it's going to be, should be in Florida. So let's check out what they have to offer this year.
Experience the hot times and cool vibes at Aloha 2023 in Orlando. Join us for an epic event, August 6 through 12 at the Hilton Orlando. Grow your potential by attending the industry's premier event for security professionals. Learn from the industry's A-team, the best instructors teaching hands-on classes. Gain new skills and grow your business. Make connections and friends. Find a mentor and connect in a setting unlike any other.
Got to meet with a lot of neat people, talked to a lot of people, got some deals from the show, and I will definitely be coming back again.
It has been really great because you can network with people, you get to talk to suppliers personally, kind of get a chance to really know these people outside of just the sales relationship you have with them.
See all the rad products at the Security Expo and take advantage of show specials.
Had a great week of classes, learning a ton of stuff, been a great experience. If you're a new locksmith, if you're a seasoned locksmith, a veteran, or anything like that, it's a really good opportunity to work with people in your industry you don't get to see every year. It's been really, really nice to have that experience.
And you just might have some fun while you're at it. Just say no to skipping Aloha 2023. We pity the fool who doesn't attend.
All right. So Aloha is going to be going on. I'll be there. I'll be teaching some classes as well. I think we just got that hammered out. We should be on schedule to teach a door storefront servicing class, learn everything about storefront servicing, closers, hinges, replacement, full service installs, even flipping doors. If they're in swing currently, you can flip them to outswing. And then a business class on Friday to get people, if you're looking to start a business, we can help you with that. We can get you on the ground floor. If you've never ran a business or never started one, we can show you what you need to get your building blocks started for that. And then the second portion of the day will be advanced business, where we learn to expand and really start growing the businesses, going into employees, how to hire them, manage them, keep them, build a team, build a strong a group of people around you, and really just create a flourishing business and get into that abundance mindset and get out of that scarcity mindset so that you can really let your business grow to its fullest potential. So, and hopefully we'll see some people at the Aloha convention. With that, here is the master key version right here. So let's check this out and let's see how we make a key for the top portion if people have not seen that yet.
And today on Wayne's Lock Shop, we're going to be decoding and working on this dual custody or master keyed quickset smart key system. These are very, very popular in apartment complexes. And this key up here will not accept the standard quickset blank. Okay. This key works down here on the renter key. That's what you want to refer to it as. The user key, the change key, or the renter key works on the
use some safe deposit verbiage nomenclature for you.
bottom. However, for building complexes that need to have key control with a master key that overrides everything, this key will not fit in this cylinder in any way, shape, or form. This key blank does. Okay, so it fits right in there. And I believe it actually fits in the bottom one too. But don't quote me on that one just yet. No, it does not fit in there. The nice part about when they designed the LockTech Smart Key Decoder tool is that they actually designed the milling so that this tool will fit in both keyways. Okay, so we're going to actually make a control key or a master key for this particular lock. We have the blank here. We just need to decode it. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that this will definitely decode the bottom lock as well. So if you have this tool, you could make a renter key for the individual user, or if you have the blanks, you can actually make a master key. So what we're going to do first is go ahead and decode the top cylinder. Now, I am going to tell you that let's just go ahead and take a look inside here. We may get a better reading if we take this scalp off. Okay, so right there. Okay, you can see, might have a little bit of a difficult time reading that. However, if we pop this scalp off real quick, that's going to be a whole lot easier to do. Okay, so now see how I can see much better. Look at the concave there, and then compare that to here. Okay, definitely, we can definitely see that that's going to be a 5. So our first cut is going to be a 5. Okay, and then just go ahead and take a look at this, and I'll show you what it looks like with that cap back on and how much difference just that little cap actually makes. Okay,
That's a good question, Keith. Did you guys have any issues with just the thickness of the cap being on there? I know there's some padlocks and they use them in toolboxes and stuff too, and that can cause some issues. Is that a later occurrence?
You know, the padlocks we didn't even know existed. I'm not sure they did exist
didn't.
when the tool
I don't-
came out.
Yeah.
And I know they have a little bit of an odd shape to them, and it was a little bit of an oversight on our side, on our part, because, you know, quite frankly, when we had that lock in our hands, which we have around here somewhere still, but when we have it in our hands, we have that cover off just because we're going from one lock back to the other lock, checking fit and all that kind of stuff. And so really the thickness of it that you're discussing, because, you know, the spacers and everything are spaced to the face of the lock where the shoulder of the key would normally seat.
Mm-hmm.
And the size of the spacer does happen to impede on that cover a little bit in that instance, and like you said, on the padlock.
Right.
But it was really an oversight because we had the lock in our hands. We just took that cover off and never put it back on.
Gotcha. Not a big deal. Just, as you use it and as the product evolves, that things change. And Kwikset, we've seen with the Smart Key, and we'll get into that a little bit later towards the end of the show, they have made another set of new improvements on this, and there is another generation. But they seem locked into this. I mean, they seem 1,000% committed. The Kwikset Smart Key is not going anywhere. They're going to continue to invest to improve this design year after year, or every couple of years, or whatever it is now. And there's not a whole lot we can do about it. We can just build the tool to defeat it the way that it is the best we can right now, and then as things get added to it, just see how that works with it as we go.
Shove that back in. We're not seeing the same image. We're not in far enough. Needs to go in just a skosh more. So you could either leave that off.
And really, to be 100% honest, the only time I use the training wheels, or training blocks is what I call them, the first 5 times. After that, you don't need them. I just use video. I'll actually use the video portion of it and video the whole thing. And that way, one of the biggest things that I really liked about this when Rob was talking to me about it is the safety aspect. Just think, even when you're picking on a lock, it takes all of your attention of focus. And if you're in a situation where you got an ex-husband that could be coming home, somebody that's unwelcome, a tenant, somebody that's just going to be in a real bad mood to see you there because you're locking them out, that can be a hazard. And you don't want to have that. And if you're focused and you can't see and you're not paying attention to your surroundings, you can get bonked on the back of the head pretty easily. And this tool really allows you to be aware of your surroundings. And that was one of the biggest things that I got from it right from the get-go. Hey, I can use this thing. I can feed it into the lock. I can take video. I can take pictures. I can still shot it. And then I can go back to the truck and I can make 2 keys. 99.9% of the time, one of those 2 keys works every single time.
And just do it manually. Okay, pull out just a slight tiny little bit more than you normally would. Right there. Okay, so we have that again. You can do it 3 different ways. You can pull the cap off, or you can just do it manually without using the spacer blocks on here. Okay, this way I'm going to do it with the spacer blocks just to make it easier for you to follow along. So we did one. Number 1 is decoded as a number 5. Okay, and then I kind of shake it back and forth so you can see this part move in there. Then I'm going to do a number 2, my number 2 cut. Okay, see if we can see that in there. So see it in there. Now we can see it. That's why I give it that little bit of jiggle. Now you can see we've got 2 little indicators right here. We're going to be looking at it like this. This is our indication chart. And you've got 1 and 2 right here. Okay, that's going to be 1 and 2 little notches up above. So I'm going to definitely say that this is a 1. And we're going to go to number 3 block, number 3 cut. Okay, actually adjust that light in there. So I can see what the heck we're doing.
And that is one of those other really nice features I haven't seen on any other product. The way that you can adjust the light is so important. When you're sight reading, it's everything. If it's just a little bit too bright, you're getting too much glare, you can't see what you need to see. If it's not enough light, you can't see what you need to see. You're working off of shadows. And, I can tell my vision is definitely deteriorating. And so it's nice to have that ability to adjust that. That was by design, right? From the get-go.
It was, yeah, and that was one of the main hurdles we had from the very beginning is defeating, you know, overcoming glare. And that sort of thing. For example, you know, it's just such a minor degree, but for example, that mirror, you know, you're looking straight down the keyway, and what you want to look at is truly, you know, a 90-degree turn from that. So but when we found out, when we first put our mirror on there on a 45, because that would give us our 90-degree view, we had a lot of glare. So the mirrors are actually not quite at 45 degrees. They're slightly off from that to again help with the glare.
Right. Gotcha. No, that's an excellent added feature, and it's just something that you don't notice until you're trying to use a product that doesn't have it, and you need it. And I need that. It's too reflective. I need to tone that down, and I can't. Just again, as soon as we started really working with this thing, you thought of everything.
And again, once we push it in all the way, here we are again. You can definitely see 1, 2, 1, 2. Very easy to tell that this is a 1. A 1's probably the easiest one to recognize. 1 is going to be the easiest one to recognize. It's going to be very, very distinct. Okay, so I'm going to take that off. Check for the 4th cut. Shove it in all the way properly. I like to give it a little wiggle back and forth. Okay, and here you go. Now we've got 1 at the bottom. Now that could be a 4, it could be a 5. I'm definitely going to say it's not a 3 because it's not a solid bar. We've got this little shadowing spot here. I'm going to call it a 4 simply because I don't see the shiny bit on the round down here. We should see just a little tiny bit more if it was a 5. Could be a 5, but I'm going to call it a 4. And then whenever I'm in doubt, I'll just write it out underneath. I'm 1,000% positive on my 5, 1, and 1 here. I'm 90% sure that it's a 4, but I'm going to write out 2 cuts just in case. Okay, that's number 4. And then the very last one. Okay, we've got the same thing again. Okay, so whatever the number 4 cut is, this is going to be the same cut. Okay, right there. So I'm just going to call it a 4, 5 again. And that's my code decoded. That's my lock decoded. So we're going to go ahead and cut this out on the Triton key machine and see what happens. So it's going to be a little difficult to do one-handed, but I'll do the best that I can. So we're going to start that off there, tighten the jaw down a little bit. And I have the guard off. I know the only reason I'm doing that is so that I can do a demonstration and actually get video of the key cutting. Do not ever take your guard off. Make sure you have your guard on at all times. I have safety glasses on as I'm doing this, so there's no risk of shrapnel getting in my face or my eyeballs. Okay, that's why we have the guard. So then we're going to come up here. We're going to tell this what to do. You can do input if you want. And we're going to do 5. What is we decode it as right here? 5, 1, 4, 4. So we're going to do 5, 1, 1, 4, 4. Beautiful. No decimal point. Okay. And I really love how easy this machine works. Okay. Decode, cut, picture, cut. Let's make it wavy. Okay. Make sure that we've got a number 2 milling in the cutter. We can check that if we want to. Also, make sure your work area is really, really clean on here. If we wanted to check this, we can check. I know that it's a 2 millimeter, but we're going to go ahead and check just for the sake of it here. Okay. Try not to let them drop like that. That's not very good for them. And let's see if we can get this to focus on here. 0.02. I don't know if you can see that or not. Okay. 0.02. Got it. All right. So then that sucker is going to go right back up in there. Hopefully I can get it Just hang on for 1 second here. Tight. Okay. Make sure it's pressed all the way in. And then just tighten it down a little bit. Okay, no need to be crazy tight. A little flex of the wrench, it'll be good to go. Now that we've verified that we have the correct cutter, I'm gonna hit OK. Okay, make sure the jaw is free of debris. And now we're gonna be cutting the master key for this. Okay, let's just warm it up, getting calibrated, telling it what to do. Gonna say done here in just a second. Your key is cut. All right, so you take this off. And then let's see if it works. There's our key right there. Wavy cut. Okay. And voila. Stick this in our lock. And wouldn't you know it? Success. Look at that. So we just made a master key for this Kwikset dual custody or their master keyed style smart key deadbolt. Pretty cool stuff, right? Okay, it will also do the exact same thing to make a key for the bottom portion of it. So if you have any questions with that, it works the exact same way. You just flip it around and then you can decode the bottom lock and make a key for that as well. We'll do that next.
Cool. Takes it out of there. So anything else that we need to know about the master key from Kwikset or any other information that you put into building that?
Not really. I can say that for some reason, I don't know why. I guess it was just more cost they didn't want to deal with. The SC1 version, the control key is the SC1 key blank. There is no master key control key version of it. It's the same blank.
So they didn't even bother to try and make it like an SC4 or a little longer anything, huh?
No change whatsoever.
Oh boy. There was a question on the live cast and now I can't find it, but I think it had something to do with along the lines of the mirror. If anybody has a problem with the mirror or any parts or anything with the product itself, what does it take for them to get a repair done or parts sent out? Or if something happens to a unit, what do they need to do?
Okay, so first off, contact us by email. Our email is info@locktech.biz. That's the easiest way because it's going to have to go. I mean, you can call us. You're welcome to call us, but it's going to have to be transferred over into an email anyway. Step one would be to determine whether it's still under warranty or not. If it is, then we handle it. It's basically you just ship it in and we ship it back to you. No cost. If it is not under warranty still, just about everything on these can be repairable. We have a flat fee pretty much for repairs. I think it's $55 on our website. That will pretty much cover anything that's wrong with it outside of the warranty period. Aside from dropping it in the ocean or driving it over with your car or something along those lines. But if anything's wrong with the key, that is repairable. You didn't fold the key in half. Then that would cover anything that stopped working on the unit or a mirror issue, things along those lines. And that can be That's basically in our shopping cart at AccuReader.com. You'll see it under the Smart Key Decoder, which that's Smart Key Decoder products. One of them will be a repair service.
Okay, there you go. Trevor, I found the post here. Trevor, I'll actually read the question. He says, I have a question. My Loctech camera has a cracked mirror and the light is intermittently working. Maybe a broke terminal or wiring. Often have to jiggle it a little bit to make it turn on or off for a split second. What can I do to remedy the issue? Sounds like send it back in. They should get it taken care of for you. And depending on when it was purchased, it may or might not be covered under warranty. But look, man, I know you guys take care of people and you stand behind their products very, very well. That's one of the reasons I'm really impressed with the product itself. I've never had any issues, but anytime I've heard of anything that people say that it gets taken care of right away, no problems whatsoever. So let's dive into the Schlage version.
One thing I want to touch on real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
With the flickering LED, that can often be just an adjustment. So when we first designed this tool, you know, the key blades have actually been a lot more durable and not had as many issues with them as we kind of expected to, as far as people accidentally breaking them or dropping the tool on the, you know, on the key blade. And so anyways, the LED, of course, as you're looking at the tool, is mounted halfway down the key blade. So we have to get power from the unit to the key blade, of course. Rather than making those wires solid to where if the locksmith needed to replace the key blade out in the field, because that's what we were thinking, we didn't want them to have to do soldering out in the field and stuff like that. So basically what we did is we put 2 contact pads, and one's got spring-loaded pins on one side and the other side has 2 little flat pads. Now what can happen, because if you're looking at this tool, if you can see it up here. All right, so if you're looking at this tool, these 2 screws right here, they essentially just sandwich the key blade between these 2 halves of the body. Okay. Now, when you're using the tool, in and out, in and out, in and out, you don't even realize it's happening a lot of times, or if the screws happen to loosen up a hair. This key can shift, you know, if you have upward pressure or downward pressure on it while you're putting it in the lock, it can shift and cause those pads to just barely be touching or sometimes go off. And a lot of times that's how you'll get a flickering LED. So what you can do is if you take these 2 screws and just lightly loosen them, and then between this hand and this hand, hold the 2 halves together, putting pressure on them, you can wiggle this key back and forth and kind of center it and make sure it's down all the way. And you should see that LED come on good, solid, and bright again. And then while you're holding it in that position, just go ahead and tighten the 2 screws back up. And that will solve your flickering issues about 90% of the time.
Well, there you go, Trevor. So just loosen it up, recenter it, get a good connection, and then clamp it back down. Should solve the problem. Very good. Thank you so much. All right, so now we'll get back into the Schlage version of this.
Good morning and welcome to Wayne's Lock Shop and LockReference.com. Today we are going to be looking at the Kwikset technology in the Schlage or SC1 keyway format. Here you can see that we're utilizing a Lishi tool. This is a little trick and a little play on the event that's going on right now. This was not actually picked. This is just me having some fun and just entertaining everybody here. But no, it was not actually picked. The reverse sidebar system will not allow that to happen because you have tension on the sidebar and it does not allow the tension to actually put any pressure on any of the wafers. So the reverse sidebar, from what I can tell and what I gathered in my personal opinion, will not allow you to pick this lock. There's also not a way to slip the shim in down through the side to get tension or pressure on that sidebar either, as we're showing here. Now I'm going to go ahead and tear this lock down so that we can.
Since Kwikset has switched to this reverse sidebar system, and I'll just kind of give people a little bit of a rundown as to how we got here. So the original system didn't have a ball bearing. That was what I was calling Gen 1. No ball bearing protection for the sidebar. And then generation 2, they added the ball bearing for drill protection. That's what I'm referring to as version 2 or Gen 2. And I've never verified any of this with Kwikset. Nobody's ever reached out to correct me either. So I'm just simply documenting the changes that we saw to get to where we're at now. The third generation was then the change in the sidebar design to a square sidebar. And they also changed the wafers, and the wafers got more wavy to allow more hardware store cut keys, or basic sloppier keys to enter and work. And then generation 4 came out with the reverse sidebar. So generation 4 said all of a sudden now when you put rotational force on there, it actually doesn't do anything because it doesn't engage anything anymore. So now you can't get tension. And if you can't get tension, you can't pick it because you can't, there's nothing to set it. There's nothing to hold the pin or the wafer there when you set it. So then people were getting a little shim that would gum around on the Kwikset ones and kind of dive in there. And it was pretty hit or miss. And you would basically just, you know, put that shim in there and it would apply pressure on 2 or 3 of those wafers. You'd get them picked. And then now you can apply rotational force when you get more than half of it, and it'll kind of start to suck that sidebar up, and it'll give you a little bit of resistance and tension on there. They started off right out of the gate on generation 1 with the with the Schlage version to have that system. The other thing they did is they also made the wafers interlocking. So they actually interlock with these pieces here. So like I said, the Kwikset is I believe it's Spectrum Industries that owns it. And they are really pouring the money, time, research, and development into this locking system. It's not going anywhere. It's not going away anytime soon. So having these tools to be able to deal with them and to be able to operate them and to be able to make keys for them out in the field as they get more advanced is quite, I think it's worth it. And one of the biggest things that the reason that I dedicated so much time to this is because locksmiths hated them so much. The Gen 1 ones with the round sidebar, the force key tool would work. You just jam a screwdriver or flat blade or something in there, and you basically just rotate it and force it over and crush the pot metal. Well, as soon as they switched to square sidebar design, it nullified that. It made that not work anymore. And so just seeing the evolution of this thing over and over and over again has been really quite fascinating to me. And I don't care who you are. I don't care what locksmith you are or how long you've been doing it. Anybody that runs into a Kwikset generation 4 or now generation 5 or even the Schlage versions of this in the field is not going to pick this lock very easily. And building a key or making a key for it, if you don't have this tool, is going to be a long, painstaking process if you're already currently locked out. Defeating it is going to be a long, painful process. And I know a lot of people don't want to admit that, but it is 100% true. This is a nasty lock to pick. It's a nasty lock to bypass. And there are ways that we figured out around it. But for the average person to walk up to this in the field, it's going to be an ugly day if you don't invest in these tools or you don't have them. So through the pain of that, that's what created my obsession to figure out everything I possibly could about this lock and notice the changes, document it, and follow it along its path and journey. And it seems like every year something else comes out, whether it's the Schlage version, SC1, the Master Keyed version, the generation 4, and now generation 5. So we'll finish this up on the SC1 keyway version of this, and then we'll jump into the generation 5 as well.
Get familiar with how it works. This works very similar to the KW1 or Kwikset keyway lock cylinder smart key technology system. However, as you can see right now, these little teeny tiny wafers actually slide on to the pieces that actually interact with the key itself. So unlike the regular Kwikset smart key technology that just sits and kind of floats, these actually slide and lock into place. And I'm guessing, or my best guess is that's because it actually requires so many smaller little grooves that it wouldn't work unless it actually slid on there. Right now, we're removing this little white plastic cap The plastic cap is actually going to pop up on the right side, and then it's going to have to slide out on the back side of the cylinder. Now I'm going to pull out all the springs. We're going to pull out all these little caps that actually interact with the lock itself, or I'm sorry, with the key itself. And this is what the cylinder looks like completely exploded. Now I'm taking immaculate pictures and documenting everything that we see so that we can compare this to future generations. We've seen the QuickSet Smart Key, QuickSet Keyway evolve through what I feel is 4 different major modifications or updates. And this, I believe, is the first generation of the Schlage Keyway one. So the biggest differences are how the wafers actually slide and interact with the pins that interact with the key. We can call those the key pins for now. I don't have the exact technical terminology that QuickSet is using for all of these parts. So that's just what I'm going to refer to them as. Now we've put all those key pins back in, and we are now reinstalling all of the springs and the white plastic cap. Noticing all of the changes, the colors, everything that goes with it is going to be absolutely important for noticing changes in the future. Again, you can see how that clip slides in, it kind of crimps those springs down and then slides back in. Very, very, very small, teeny tiny little grooves. So one of the biggest differences in this lock from the QuickSet version is that QuickSet is going to have 6 depths. Schlage is going to have 9 depths. So that's why I think they had to make that change and actually have those wafers lock in and interact, because there's such minute differences in the tolerances are so much smaller to accommodate that 9 depth option as opposed to just the 6 in the QuickSet KW1 version. Here we are, we're sliding those wafers back in. One of the biggest things that you'll notice is that there's no ball bearing or anti-drill protection. Now, that has several different options, and it's both good and bad for the lock and for the security purposes. You'll notice there is no ball bearing, so it is going to be more susceptible to drilling attacks if you know exactly where to drill, and we will be drilling one of these in the future. I haven't done it yet, but that is one of the first things that I noticed. There's no ball bearing on the side to protect that sidebar from drilling. In the QuickSet version, there is a ball bearing there, but that ball bearing also allows for the shim to be inserted, that real thin shim on the Gen 4 locks. You can insert that shim right alongside the plug, in between the plug and the housing, and you can actually apply pressure to that sidebar, and that is what allows you to start picking it. From what I gather and everything that I've tried and found on this lock, you cannot fit a shim in there because it doesn't have that open void where that ball bearing is. So it is both a security feature that it is not allowing that space for the shim to actually reach and touch that sidebar to apply pressure. And it's also a bad thing because it's not that drill resistant. For more information, check out Wayne's Lock Shop and lockreference.com.
All right, so tell us a little bit more about how you came up with the SC1 version of this and what is currently offered. How can people get this? If they already have the tool, do you sell just the blank? Do you sell the whole tool? What exactly, how do you get this into people's hands?
Okay, so right about the same time the SC1 was going to be released, we were also in the process of basically updating the tool to what you see here, which is our 2.0. We call it 2.0. It uses the exact same key blade. The tool itself has had some improvements. It uses a USB-C charging port now. It's got some improved phone capabilities. It's got, a lot of people were asking for battery level indicators. It's got time remaining battery level indicator on it. The connection from Wi-Fi is a little bit simpler. And let's see. Yeah, so it's got some improvements here. It's basically just an updated, improved tool. And we decided to, since they're both basically ready to be released at the same time, we decided to release them at the same time. One of the things that we heard from a lot of locksmiths that were aware of the SC1 and wanted to buy it, as they wanted to know if it was going to be available as a separate tool or as an upgrade. The easiest thing to do would have been obviously just make it a separate tool. However, there were a lot of people that wanted to just purchase an upgrade for it and use their same tool. So what we decided to do is accommodate both. We're selling it as a complete tool. You can buy it just, SC1 version of it, or you can buy what we call an expansion kit. That expansion kit doesn't come with the 2.0 tool. It's basically just the key blade, the SC1 key blade, the cards, the spacers, instructions, and it actually comes in a protective, kind of like a foam soft case now as well. So it's available in several different configurations now, just to try to accommodate as many as we could.
Right. So that drew up a question. Somebody said that there were 10 depths for the Schlage version. And I actually pulled one of the wafers apart here. There's actually 12 different settings. There's 12 different ridges in that particular wafer here. I just kind of took a picture, took one apart, took a picture, blew it up, and counted all the pieces.
Yeah.
One of the things that you and I noticed, and you brought this to my attention too, is if you set a lock, if you take a random lock and you cut a key to, let's say, all 5s or all 4s or just all of one particular cut, and you actually rekey the lock to that, and then you disassemble the lock and take it apart, you'll notice that there are multiple wafers that are not in perfect line with each other. Like they're not all going to be on, if you hit it on the 6th one, they're not all going to be on that 6th cut. There's enough slop in the lock where you're gonna, you know what I mean? Like they can be adjusted inside there. And so it's kind of wherever they end up. So you might have one that's reading as a 6 cut, but the key that it was rekeyed to might have been a 5 cut. Can you go in a little bit further detail to that?
Yeah, so as far as like the 12 little notches you're talking about, I don't remember counting them, but I do know the little foot, I guess, that goes into that from the pin cap. That has I think that covers like 3 or 4 at a time. It interlocks with 3 or 4 of them at a time. And if I'm not mistaken, there is actually 10 different positions that little foot can be locked into there.
So
and
it will take an O cut.
yes, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Now the sloppiness, I think, is just, quite frankly, just because to get that many depths, they had to make those pins so small. And so they couldn't, in that short amount of room they had to make this thing work, it couldn't be that accurate and still be, I guess, feasible to mass produce. So
Right.
it's
Which is why the tools work so well, is because this is locksmithing 101 since the beginning of time. Accuracy and tolerances of the more expensive high security locks are going to be more expensive and be almost a little more problematic than some of the sloppier ones, but they're listed as more secure or better because of that higher tolerance. So that's kind of the cat and mouse game is do you want a nice, tight, high quality lock, or do you want something that's going to accept more keys? And obviously, if this is a residential grade product, they're going to have hardware store cut keys or these KeyMe kiosk keys. And, they're just going to have keys that are not cut by a professional locksmith used in the product a lot of the time, probably more so than products than a quality product. You know what I mean? There's more hardware store cut keys going into these locks than locksmith cut keys for sure, or factory cut keys for that matter.
Right. Now, something else I think worthwhile mentioning is, I've heard this in the past where somebody would think when they decoded it, maybe they couldn't tell the difference if it was a 1 or a 2 or whatever, 2 numbers side by side. And they might think that the lock might have been, or the key might have been half cut that was, used to set the bidding for it. Something I do want to say is it's literally impossible to have these locks on a half cut. The reason why I say that is because there's only 6, like on the KW1, there's only 6 positions that wafer can be interlocked with that spring cap. There is no way it could be a half cut. If you cut a key to a half cut, it's going to choose one or the other. And the same thing with the Schlage, the SC1, there isn't any extras, there isn't any in-betweens. It's going to choose one or the other. So when you're making the determination of it, there's no point in even trying to do half cuts, because you're still just, when you put a key in there that's half cut, it's still going to just choose one or the other. It's not like a traditional pin that you're, just trying to line up with a shear line.
Right. And I think that comes more from old school locksmithing where, people would put half cuts in there intentionally so
Right.
the keys, other locksmiths wouldn't tamper with their system. They thought it was maybe more secure. There was a whole lot of reasons, or somebody would use Schlage cuts or Schlage depths or Schlage pins in quickset locks, vice versa. It's just a bunch of weird stuff that has happened in pin tumbler style locks. But I agree with you. You quite literally can't have a half cut on here. And the internal components aren't going to wear out to a half cut either, because it's almost all hardened steel. Like the internals of this lock are pot metal and hardened steel. The little wafers and the caps and the key pins that actually interact with the key are hardened steel. And that is going to, you'll wear out 100 different keys before you even make the tiniest indentation on a hardened piece of steel in the lock. So I agree with you 1000% there, but great that you brought up that point. There's never going to be a half cut. It can't be set to it. It's literally set to a gear and a position or a cog, as opposed to a specifically milled pin.
Right.
So, all right, well, let's go ahead with this one
This
here.
is Wayne, and this is the Locksmith channel. We're going to be going over the new LockTech Smart Key defeat tool for the Schlage SC1 keyway. Now we know that Kwikset has offered the Schlage keyway version of their Smart Key technology, and they've changed a few things around. One of the nice things to know is that I'm showing you how to change just the blade out. So you can upgrade the tool without buying an entire new tool. It's very simple. It's 2 Allen head screws. They come off. It's practically impossible to put the thing on backwards, and you can see that the LED light then again works right away. Now you can make yourself familiar with the code cards and the spacing blocks, and we're going to begin decoding this lock. So here's a picture of what it looks like. You'll compare that on the chart. We'll dip in again, take another look. This is again what you're going to see. This is an actual picture from inside the lock. Compare that to your chart. We've done this with several locks. This one just came out the best. Now here you can see the top 2 prongs at the top, and you're really looking for light and shadows. That's the number one thing you're going to distinguish. Here we have another round bump kind of in the middle. And we'll go ahead and get one more view. Now we can see some more of those jagged lines at the top. You're looking at the wafers that actually set the depth. Now here I took pictures as well as taking video. The reason I took the video is I want to show you what it looks like inside there when we turn that lock back and forth, and how you can move the wafers from what you see. You can almost change the view almost a full number in one direction or the other just by leaning it and rotating it back and forth. So the best thing that I have been able to come up with is writing down two sets of numbers. All right, so after we decoded this here, I want to cut two keys to this and see exactly what it is, but you can see there's a combination of both here. So we've got 6, and then when we actually decoded everything on the actual decoder here, you can see 6, 9, 4, 8, 3. But this lock is so sloppy that I'm betting that even incorrectly cut keys will probably still work. And let's test that theory out right now. Okay, so I did cut one key that does fit, that's to that exact bitting. Okay, to the exact bitting right here. So now we're going to cut that top one and that bottom one out and see if those work as well.
And I'll just interject here, and this little setup that I have, this is actually like part of my lockout bag system now, where I've attached this Ritan 2000 to Milwaukee pack out, and then I've got Kwikset and Schlage 5 and 6 pin keys in here, along with the cutting head and everything. This makes so easy, such easy work. I mean, you can bang out $150, $200, $300 lockout and keys made in just seconds, as opposed to what it used to take before, with, you know, having to take the lock apart, decode it, sight read it, reset it, whatever you're going to be doing. This is just so easy now. Even if it's just a lockout, I still usually just hand them the key after we're done. And it all comes in. I got my Loctech tool, and I've got my Ritan, and I've got my pack out bag, and everything comes right up to the door. Click, 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 hand them a key, and they're done. Their jaw falls on the floor like that was too easy. I'm usually quite literally, I can make a key to these locks and get lockouts for these done in about as much time as it takes to unlock a vehicle now. I mean, it's that fast. One of the things people should remember is that the more that I play with this lock, even if you set a key to, let's say, all 5s or all 1s and reset the lock, you will actually get different numbers than what you set it to. Okay. That is not working. So then the reason I cut it out to the top ones is I can go ahead and use the exact same key and cut it straight out to the bottom ones. So now we're going to cut it. Just go ahead and cut it down. Here I'm cutting the key out to the deeper cuts. So I reuse the exact same key and cut it out to the 79484, and it works, no problem at all. So now that we've got 2 different keys that work, even though they're different cuts, it just goes to show how sloppy this lock is. And I'm just going to go ahead and put the Kwikset back on. For more information, check the website below. All righty. Do you have any other information about the Schlage version of this for us before we move on to Kwikset Gen 5?
Not really. I can't think of anything in particular.
Okay. All right. So here's the first look at the Kwikset Generation 5 and some of the changes that have come with this.
Hello and welcome to Lane's Lock Shop at lockreference.com. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Smart Key newest generation. I personally think this is Generation 5, meaning that I have seen 5 or noticed 5 different changes in this locking systems.
We just rekeyed it just so you could see that it still works the exact same way. It works with an old key. It works with the new key. We rekeyed it to a different key, rekeyed it back. I just like to put this thing through the paces, and you'll notice One of the reasons that I have so much information and know so much about this lock is because as soon as something changes in it, as soon as something comes out, I immediately go to the hardware store and go get one, and I take it apart and I get my hands in it, and it's in a million pieces out on the table. That's part of learning. You can't get any more value than getting your hands on it, taking it apart, watching how it works, and then the most important piece of the equation, putting all the pieces back and making sure that it actually still does work. So that's going to be a great tip for people out there. Anytime you see something new, immediately search and destroy. Take it apart, fan it all out, take pictures every step along the way, put it all back together, see if you can make it work again. It's going to keep you sharp as a locksmith. It's going to sharpen and hone your skills, and you're going to know that lock very, very intimately.
Since it has come out. Now, first thing that we're going to do is take a look at what's changed. The reverse sidebar, which was, in my opinion, the 4th generation change, is still there. So you would need the shim to pick this version. Also, I'm showing you how to sight read one of these locks. If you ever run into this in the field, instead of taking it apart, you can actually just shove a key blank in and sight read the part. Now, here's where the changes come into play. The changes come into play with the wafer design. You notice that there are extra notches on those wafers, allowing for a further cut. So one of the things that we noticed on this is that we could cut a 7 depth key to be able to work at that 7th depth in this system. So I think that is an improvement and a nuance as well. One of the other things you're going to notice is the keys are going to be a brass color. They're not going to be the silver keys anymore. And when I showed the beginning of the lock, you can actually see the date, the time and date stamp printed on there. It's copyrighted 2023. And this is the first look at the Gen 5 from Kwikset. Check out our webinar later today. Thanks for watching.
All right, so we just do that together for today's meeting. Tell us what your thoughts are on this particular setup and what you think is happening here.
Well, I mean, my personal opinion is that this is their first opportunity to try to make the tool not work on their locks. I don't know if you can you put that little shot back up of the 2 wafers side by side?
Yeah, let me see if I can screen share that. Let's go back.
Hello and welcome again, and sight read the part. Taking it apart, you can actually.
That's probably about as close as we're
Okay.
gonna get.
Yeah, okay, so all of these wafers are the same in these locks, whatever position you're looking at. Traditionally, the bottom one that he's got is what the previous wafers would look like. And when you're looking at through the decoder, you're looking at basically the bottom edge of that wafer. You're looking at different points or different positions along that edge. And that's where that half moon cutout that you see on your depth card, as well as the flat, that flat right there in the middle is basically the 3 position that you're seeing in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And then the notches go on to the 1 and the 2. So above that is the new generation 5 wafer. And as you can see, they did away with that little flat. Now, what that means is when you're looking through the decoder and you're looking at that wafer, there's no flat in the middle that you're used to seeing. All you're going to see is more notches. And so for now, with the decoder, if you're decoding one of these locks, a position 1, a position, or a depth 1, a depth 2, and a depth 3 are all going to look identical. There's really no way of telling the difference looking through them that I've seen so far. And then 4, 5, and 6, you can actually start to see it looks a little bit different than what your card shows, but it's basically the same shape, and it's fairly easy to tell which one it is. Now, something else that is. I don't know if it's gonna get utilized or whatever, but the lock itself on this Generation 5 is capable of having a 7 depth.
And I did test that. I cut one out to 7.
Right,
And just briefly covering on that, you and I chatted about that. I don't know what everybody else does or if anybody else knew that there was a 7th depth or there used to be one. I was always told that if you're master keying quickset smart key, if you've got a complex that's, or I'm sorry, if you're master keying quickset in general, the old pin tumbler locks, it would be a good idea, because the locks are so sloppy and because there's so few combinations, because your combinations are reduced so much and they're so sloppy, that it would be a good idea. It was considered a security benefit to add a 7th cut to your master key. That way you would eliminate the possibility of anybody's general pre-cut house keys working in that lock, at least as the master key. So what that does is if you're adding a non-factory cut to a factory lock that was never cut, and that's why I always refer to Schlage as 1 through 9, 9 cuts. I've never seen a residential grade Schlage lock come out of the factory with an O cut. Never seen it. Okay, it doesn't. I've never seen a 0 cut on a factory blank. I don't even think I've seen it in the commercial versions. Everything always starts at 1 and it goes down from there. Even Everest and all the new stuff that they come out with, their interchangeable core stuff, it all starts off with a 1 cut. Could you make it? Could you leave it blank? And could you add a 0? Can you pin that up? Yes, you could, but I've never seen it come out from the factory. So there again, that would be another way where you could incorporate that to your master key system, where you have an O cut in your master key for Schlage. I keep those two things in mind when I'm building my master key systems so that they're as secure as possible, always adding a 7th depth to the master key master cut. Go ahead and continue.
okay. So the quick answer, I think everybody's probably wondering is, yes, we do have something in the works for this. For the time being, as far as to help you out on calls and stuff like that, I believe these started showing up in January, February. So if you wanted to, if this lock is a concern and you know, you don't know whether you want to take the call or not, a good rule of thumb might be to ask, or even when you're there and you're not seeing something right, you could ask them if this lock is newer than January, February of this year. If it's older than that, I think it's going to be a Gen 4 or, you know, a Gen 4 lock or older. I don't think the Gen 5s have been out that long. The oldest I've seen is, again, got about a February date stamp on it. And that's, we started hearing from a couple of customers occasionally from within the last couple months. So that'll kind of give you an idea of whether the lock that you're looking at is possibly a Gen 5 or not. As far as current ways of dealing with it, if there's not too many 1s, 2s, or 3s in there, then it's feasible to do a little progression. If there's, say, lot, you know, 3 or 4 1s, 2s, and 3s in the lock, the scope is not going to help you on that particular lock much at this point.
Right. So the basic thing is, number one, I wouldn't even be concerned about this in any way, shape, or form. The chances of somebody buying a lock in the last 6 months or 5 or whatever, putting it on their door, and me getting called out to a lockout at that particular location and be involved with one of these so soon is slim to none already. And at that point, I've got a class that's actually designed. It's on wayneslockshop.com. If anybody is not a member yet, go ahead and go to wayneslockshop.com, check that out. I've got 15 different ways to bypass this lock, and the LockTech Smart Key Defeat tool is the best, the most professional, in my opinion, the best, in my opinion, the easiest, in my opinion, the safest, both for the customer and for me, and the most professional, in my opinion. However, that is one tool in my toolbox. I'm not afraid of this lock at all. If that one doesn't work, and you'd shove it in there, and if you see one wafer that has more than two notches in the top that you would see for that number one cut, you've got yourself one of these Gen 5 ones, and you would know that immediately. And as you said, you could do a progression on it. You could cut all the other ones and then start cutting 1, 2, 3, 4 until it opens up and turns over, just like you'd progress automotive key for the ignition. Or you just go on to a separate bypass. We can drill for the screws. There's just a bunch of different bypasses that we can do for this. And the QuickSet Smart Key is at the point now where I carry cylinders on the truck, replacement cylinders. The knob and the lever versions, along with the deadbolt versions. Obviously, the deadbolt version is probably going to be the most popular one, but I carry 5 of each in silver and Duranotic on both trucks. If we run into a brass one, I don't see brass hardware that often anyways, but I'm not really going to keep that on the truck at that point in time. So, the tool still definitely is absolutely valuable. Absolutely, super valuable. My go-to way to defeat these. And I'm sure you guys will have a defeat for that long before people start actually really running into it quite commonly out in the field.
I think so. We're actually just pretty much ironing out the final design portions of it. We've got a pretty good solid plan moving forward with it. It's going to be used, the product would be used in conjunction with the scope. It would be, I guess, a little add-on to basically tackle the Gen 5 changes. So it is coming. It's just not quite out yet.
Awesome. Well, we are so very much looking forward to that. Obviously, when you come out with that, let us know. You're welcome to come back and be a guest and tell us all about it and show us how that tool works. I know that, just the way your mind works and the tools that you come up with, this is not going to be a problem at all. It's going to be, you're going to have an easy workaround for it. And it's going to continue to adapt, and you're going to continue to adapt. And this is the security industry, ladies and gentlemen. It's just happening at a faster pace. Instead of lock manufacturers changing a system or design every decade, like they did 20, 30 years ago, now they're changing every year or two. And pretty soon it'll probably be every single year. There may be a point in time where they start changing every 6 months, but who knows? Eventually there'll be kind of a medium where production and cost come into play. Obviously, changes are going to be expensive. Every time you have a new product, you're going to have bugs to work out of it on the manufacturer's side. So they probably don't want a whole lot more changes than are absolutely necessary. But with YouTube and all of these other different things out there, when there's videos that have over 100,000 hits that show how to defeat their product, either using a tool, using a force tool, using your tool, a Lishi tool, or whatever tool, they're going to have to address that at some point. And it's almost kind of nice to see the manufacturers addressed it from the security standpoint. Do you have any other information? Do you want to make any plugs out there for your website, AccuReaders, anything else before we wrap it up? We've gone a little bit long. We've actually been here an hour and a half, but it's been absolutely entertaining. And I hope everybody here has gotten some real value from this. And you're really seeing a lot of the stuff that I have to offer in wayneslockshop.com.
I don't necessarily have anything else. I appreciate you all. Y'all are the reasons why I'm able to do what I do, because it's you guys that support that. So thank you very much for that. And we'll continue doing what we do as long as y'all want us to.
Thank you so much. We'll open it up for questions. You can either unmute your microphone, just don't talk over other people, or you can put your questions in the chat section if your microphone is not working. We'll leave the microphones on for about a minute. If we don't have any questions, we'll go ahead and wrap it up and call it a day. Go ahead and unmute your microphones or raise your hand if you have questions for myself or for Keith. Questions, comments, concerns? AccuReader.com, tons of info there. Absolutely. Thank you, Jack. Thank you to everybody that joined. One last call for questions. All righty. With that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you, everybody, for joining. This is the monthly meeting. This is Monday, every Monday at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We have about an hour to an hour and a half long meeting with a guest usually. And thank you so much, Keith, for joining us. We really appreciate it. We really enjoy your products, and we really can tell that you put a lot of time, effort, and quality into the things that you build. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All righty. Have a wonderful day. We'll wrap it up. This will be recorded. If you guys want a copy of the recording, just hit me up and I'll send it over to you, and we'll post it in Wayne's Lock Shop and the other Facebook groups, and probably ClearStar as well. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.